Utah fans, good evening and welcome into the Coaches Show tonight, but not the football Coaches Show. No, we've shifted gears. We're into basketball season now. It's our first edition of the Larry Krystkowiak Coaches Show tonight, presented by Smith's. Low prices and market fresh, the official sponsor of the Coaches Show, both football and basketball. Coming to you from the Huntsman Basketball Facility here on campus in Larry's office, high above the Huntsman and above campus here. As we get you ready for Utah basketball this week, no games until Saturday night. They'll take on the Tulsa Golden Hurricanes Saturday afternoon. Right across the way at the Huntsman Center at 3 o'clock. So a couple of ways to join the program tonight. If you have questions or comments, you can text them in at 877-353-0700, or feel free to hit us up on Twitter at ESPN700Bill. We'll talk a little bit about the 6 games so far this season, the Wooden Legacy over the weekend, Tulsa coming up, development of young basketball players, and a whole lot more tonight on the Coaches Show. Did you miss me? How are you?
Oh,
good to see you.
Good to see you.
It's been
show
a whole
one. It turned into a TV show too.
I know. How about this? And it's nice. We're here in your office. We've got the fireplace behind us. We've got a little ambiance going on, and it's nice for you too. You can come up here after practice, get a little work done, strum the guitar, and then do a little radio and video show.
It keeps it handy, that's for sure, and convenient for us.
So the weekend at the Legacy down in Southern California, some good, some bad. Just kind of walk us back through Hawaii to Grand Canyon, then yesterday to Northwestern.
Yeah, no, I thought that it was kind of a tale of, different scenarios. We had the Hawaii game, game 1, and I was really surprised because we had one of our best weeks of practice. Some guys were really locked in, and then we got in the middle of that game, and it seems like a little thing, but we lost the game by 9, and the first half free throws were 10 for 19.
Right.
So you talk all the time about how there aren't any little things. And I thought it was free throw woes, and we had 6 or 7 point blank opportunities in the first 10 minutes of that game that we didn't convert on. And those are the differences when you look back at the film. Sometimes when you're live, you're just grinding and trying to sort it out, and you look back on it, and there were a number of 4-point plays. The 2 we didn't get, the 2 we gave up. But we bounced back. Grand Canyon's a good team. I wouldn't be surprised if they're an NCAA team. They could win their league. And we played real well. Had Cedric and the backcourt played much better, and we shared the basketball like we haven't all year. And then had a day off, and ran up against a Northwestern team that took us out a lot of what we wanted to run. And after watching that ball game, that was a big turnover fest. We had 13 of them at halftime, and they scored 13 points off of our turnovers. From a field goal percentage, the offense needs to improve, but it wasn't bad, just under 50%. But we just gave them far too many opportunities, and we weren't ready to play. 11 o'clock, 11 a.m. game, and we didn't respond very well. Bill, I think one of the big themes with our team, and certainly not going to make excuses and live with it all year, but we've got a number of young kids that are playing.
Sure.
And as we watch some of the breakdowns, it's kind of that learning curve. You're just going to have to, live with some of it. And the guys are up here watching film. We had a bunch of the young kids up here watching film, and you got to get experience by playing, and hopefully we can eliminate those. And then, have guys just stepping up and making some plays. But what we're not doing, we can fix. It's not confusing or mysterious to our coaching staff. We had a good film session. Coaches were ready to go, and we're approaching a point of our season where we have 3 games over the next 3 weeks. So we play basically 1 game a week, and we're looking at it as kind of a mini training camp. And we've got a lot of areas that we need to improve on, but at the same time, we've got ample time to do it.
Turnover thing yesterday, too, was, and it seemed, and Jimmy and I were talking about this a little bit on the broadcast, it felt like a lot of those were unforced. Mm-hmm. Guys maybe just going a little too fast or trying to make that pass that wasn't necessarily there or their teammate wasn't necessarily ready for. There were a lot of passes that zinged behind guys, or guys had cut already and the ball went into the bench or out of bounds on the sideline. They weren't necessarily things that Northwestern was doing, although they did some nice things to take you out of things, but a lot of those mistakes were almost trying to make a play too quickly or not going slow enough.
Well, I thought their defense sped us up, and that's one of the things I addressed with the team afterward is we need a bunch of reps where we kind of turn our defense loose. We don't necessarily get out and pressure and get physical with our own team. And when you don't do that enough in practice, and it happens to you in a game setting, a.k.a. Minnesota and Northwestern, you get sped up a little bit. So we have to simulate that. In a practice setting, there was a loose ball that came over in front of our bench that I grabbed. Certainly not an excuse because both teams were trying to play with it, but that basketball was brand new. And I'd never – I mean, I tried to pick it up off the floor, and it slipped through my hands. And some of our turnovers were, passing it to a guy, and it was just like whoosh, like the thing slipped out of guys' hands. And
it's funny you say that because Jimmy and I commented on that. It looked like it was a brand-new ball. I said somebody should have gone outside on the cement, scuffed it up a little bit at one of the timeouts because it looked like it was right out of the box.
Well, and that's what, you play in some of those tournaments, and there's not a team that are breaking those balls in.
Right.
Whatever the corporate sponsorship, whatever ball it was, I didn't even look. But they were right out of a box, and it's new. Like, we take our balls here, and, it takes a while to break them in, and some of our guys do. When we play a Nike school, we don't have a bunch of used Nike balls, and we'll end up buying them, and you do have to kind of scuff them up and get a feel to them. But that, our issues were far more than the basketball. But there was 4 or 5 turnovers I can think of that the ball certainly didn't help us any. But it really was a credit to their defense, and it was a learning experience. Our players are learning, and our coaching staff's learning a little bit more about what our players are good at, what we need to avoid. And I really like, I can't share a bunch of our concepts and thoughts, but it's going to get simplified, and we're looking forward to coaching these guys. They're a fun group to coach.
Well, I know you've said that all year long. You said it in the summertime when I talked to you. You said it in fall camp when I talked to you. You like this group of guys. But it is a little different for you and your staff this year because you haven't had to do as much teaching in recent years. You've had some veteran groups. You really only have 4 guys that are playing for you that have played for you the last few years.
Right.
Everybody else is new. I think it's 9 new faces, and I think 6 of them are freshmen, although Lahat's out right now. You've got a couple of transfers. But you guys are probably doing a lot more teaching and stopping of practice. There's probably not as much flow as there's been in the practice settings in recent years.
Yeah, and that's something that it'll make you laugh because of the future, with some of these kids, but it'll make us cry. And I'll be first to admit that and it's not easy to admit, but we've probably tried to teach too much.
Right.
Offensively and defensively. We had a defensive plan against Northwestern Sunday that was pretty simple when it came to what we were used to doing with our players. And we had a day off. We had Saturday off. So we had practice time. Okay, here's 3 little tidbits that can really help our team. Here's where we're going to switch this certain concept. And we were 1 for 12. They ran that play 12 times, and we only did it 1 time. And I'm watching a bunch of guys run around like, this is like the only thing that we really did. So part of you says, if we've got a group that's not that cerebral, that are trying to survive and make some plays, then we probably just need to not try to get tricky with how, and we always have, hey, here's some things mentally that can help us. But until our kids mature a little bit, get more comfortable and confident on the court with what to do, we're probably going to have to chill on any secrets, and our offense probably needs to be condensed to half of what it is so that some roles can get developed, and I'll take that. I'll take some of our struggles in some of those areas, and we just got to get a little bit more vanilla and start rolling with it, and then as we get some maturity and some experience, then maybe we'll get a little more tricky. But for right now, it's got to be simplified.
But those are things you don't know until you get into the situation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes teams pick up on things quickly, and other teams take a little bit longer to do that. So until you actually get into that scenario, that situation of playing game situations, practice isn't it. You can throw it all out of practice, but when you get in those game situations, that's when you realize, and I've heard you say it to me over the years, we've sat here before, and sometimes you've said, hey, we're throwing too much at these guys. We've got to dial it back. We've got to free their minds up just a little bit and simplify it. And that sounds like the stage you're at right now.
Yeah, and that's exactly where we're at. And, I'll take it, and we'll move on. As I said, I think a lot of the things are fixable. And I do know this. The things that happen all the time in the game of basketball, you have to be good at. And I know that we're changing ends every time. So your defensive transition better be your bread and butter. And we've worked on it every day in practice, but we still have a long way to go. So rather than maybe working on some kind of trick play that a team's going to run, let's make sure that the 50 times that we've got to get back on defensive transition, we've made some improvements with. And that's what happened even yesterday. You know, you miss a 3 to go down 6 when it's a 9-point game. And next thing you know, it's a 16-point game. And it's the wide open 3 that we don't get. And we decide, a couple guys jog back. And boom, it's a 3-point play. So that's a 6-point turnaround. The 3 you didn't get, the 3 you gave them. And then next thing you know, another 3-point play. So that's a 9-point swing. And really, in my mind, you can't control missing the 3, but I do know we could have controlled not giving up the 3.
Right.
And so, again, it's kind of the other thing that happens all the time in the game of basketball is rebounding. There's an awful lot of shots that get taken. So, I think we're +7 on the season, but it's that 1 point in the game where you got a chance to cut it to 2, and all of a sudden you get them to miss, and you get out toughed a little bit, the ball bounces around, they get it and lay it in. Yeah. It's those types of things. So we're going to really focus on and get consistently good at the things that are happening all the time, and then we'll move to the next set.
Before we take our first break of the night and turn our attention, I want to get Larry's thoughts on how these new faces are kind of coming along and through 6 games. It's weird to say, but we're 20% of the season's done already, 6 games in, at least the regular season. Kuz was at the game on I think it was Thursday night.
Yeah.
Came by. So
sat through the whole thing.
Yeah, came and sat and watched. And
Thanksgiving.
I got a chance to catch up with him and chat a little bit afterwards. Did you get a chance to say hi?
Yeah, spoke with him after the game, and it's pretty neat. He talked to him directly leading off the court, and then he stuck around until I addressed the team, talked to him in the hallway, and I went up and did the media stuff and came down, and he was still there, and we talked again. So he's really connected with our team, and he's doing a heck of a job. So it's really a cool story, and what he stands for and what he's trying to do, and happy to see the Lakers. Right at this point, they're in the playoffs and seem to be. I know they took one on the chin last night, I guess it was, but he's just a solid kid. It's fun. It's fun to catch up with him and him to take time on Thanksgiving.
And that's exactly right. That's what I told him too. I said, we've always known Kuz is a great guy, but life then gets busy. You know how life in the NBA is. But for him on his day off on Thanksgiving to drive down to Orange County and see you guys, and then visited with me and Jimmy for a little while afterwards too. It was great. And I told him I couldn't be happier. I said, keep working your tail off because your hard work's taken you a long way already. Yeah.
No, he's a class act, and he's doing a lot for the city of Flint and where his roots are, and trying to help out with that situation. So fun to have him representing us all.
We'll take our first time out of the Coaches Show tonight, which is brought to you by Smith's. It's also brought to us tonight by Bud Light, the official sponsor of Utah Athletics, reminding you to enjoy responsibly. Larry and I will come back. We'll talk some more Utah basketball. We'll look ahead to Tulsa in a bit and some other stuff. We'll talk about some of the newcomers coming up next as well. This is Utah basketball and the Coaches Show from Learfield.
Where's the cookies? We used to.
Show tonight presented as always by Smith's, low prices and market fresh. Our show also tonight brought to you by Code Red Pepsi. They bring you the play of the week. That right there was our play of the week. Topalovic getting a bucket, then erasing one, then kicking ahead to Parker Van Dyke. That's how you do the do with Mountain Dew Code Red. Larry's here with me. It's our first of many coaches show this year. We'll do them every Monday night from 6 until 7 o'clock. We may take a break over the holidays, but outside of that, we'll be doing coaches shows from 6 until 7 o'clock. Back from Southern California, Tulsa coming up. We'll talk about that. I thought this would be a good time, though. You and I talked on the radio show right before the year about the youngsters and the new faces. But now you've had 6 games under your belt. You've had a couple of months working with them. I thought it'd be fun to go over them. We could start with the transfer guys. You had, you've got Novak, who we just heard the highlight, coming in from Idaho State, and obviously Brandon Morley as well, transferring in from Salt Lake Community College. What have those guys brought? A couple of big men.
Yeah, different look for sure. Novak works his tail off and is a physical presence for us inside. Had a nice basketball game, I guess. I thought against Northwestern. It was finished. It was 4 for 4 in the first half. I think consistency is probably the biggest thing. Just and he's going to benefit as the other guys are when as we talked about. Just let's simplify some things and try to lock in on some things. Brandon Morley's ability to hit some threes and skilled. He's kind of an old school, crafty player, and I think he's earning some more minutes on the floor. There might even be chances when we're playing some zone that we could have Brandon. I told him to make sure he figures out the 3 spot. And that a little bit more of the 4 spot.
I was going to say, that'd be a heck of a swap for him playing the 3.
That's a stretch. But having one, like Jace or Novi playing the 5 and Brandon at the 4, because he's as good a shooter as we have on the perimeter. So those guys had a nice little weekend and didn't get a great opportunity to play, but the confidence, I think, is improving with both of them.
And obviously Chuck's a transfer, too. He was a junior college player of the year last year, and I think he's probably been a little slower to come along than people would have thought, but where's he in his progress right now?
Yeah, for 8 years now, Bill, we've kind of talked about it, and I know you can remember us talking about it. There's just so many times that it usually is about Christmas time that the junior college kids really figure some things out, and he it really was great on our trip. Wasn't playing a lot of minutes, but what we need is what we're about to do, which is to practice over 3 weeks where we've only got 3 games. Obviously, once things kind of get set in stone, when we got down to Anaheim on Thanksgiving, there's no practice time. There's no way to really go out and do your thing. So I know Chuck is all in to what we're trying to do, and I'm really hopeful that we can see some of that ability, shine. And we got over a month to go before we get to Christmas. And, there's a reason that little saying floats around in college basketball is, but he was encouraging. He was kind of an extension as a coach, giving guys some enthusiasm. I made him the player of the game after our win against Grand Canyon. He changed the number because I thought, there's a lot of kids that don't get a chance to play that you kind of lose them, and he was as engaged as anybody and had a real positive effect on the outcome and the energy and the enthusiasm on the bench. So that was big.
Then your freshmen. Booth and Riley played a lot of minutes, and Timmy too. All 3 of those guys played a lot of minutes for you this week. Booth played a lot of point guard. Riley came in and gave you terrific minutes off the bench, scored the basketball as you would expect, a guy that scored as much as he did, and then Timmy's been a starter for you. Give me, those 3 guys are all at different places, but they're all playing a lot of minutes for you right now.
Yeah, they are. I liked our class. Nassim Gaskin is going to redshirt as a freshman, and obviously Big Lahat has the boot and broken foot.
By the way, that kid is a great interview. I thoroughly, you guys were practicing. He's in the boot, and you were over at Mater Dei High School on Thanksgiving, and so I needed a player interview, and so I figured, well, let's just go talk to Lahat. And I wasn't sure how he would be, and I sat down, and you want to talk about a kid with a big smile, gregarious as the day is long, and a great story too, by the way. I mean, I've never seen a kid so thankful for everything that's happened to him over the last few years. He was a great interview.
Well, I'll share something with you I don't think I've shared with anybody. When he committed the morning, we had breakfast the last morning he was here, and it was kind of time to have him make a decision. we sat there as a coaching staff for at least 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, and it was complete silence, and he and his mentor who were here that was, instrumental in getting him from Africa to the United States, Lahat cried the entire time. He could, and we just, I got up and patted him on the back, and and the whole thing was he just couldn't believe that it was all. He was so thankful about the opportunity, and when, he got his composure. And there's not that many kids. The only other kid that cried was Brandon Taylor. And I thought, boy, if this is any indication of where a kid's heart is. And so our fingers are really crossed. We're praying that he can get himself healthy, because the first couple months he was here, he blocked more shots in our practice facility than we've had, blocked since we've opened it. He can really change a game defensively. So that's one that we're optimistic about the future. But, between Timmy, Booth, and Riley, we're really pleased with those guys. There's mistakes being made, and they're realizing that, you can't get away with certain things. Riley and Timmy had some shots blocked that they hadn't had blocked in a long time. And that's all part of not being a freshman and some of that experience. But they're all super coachable, and they want to get better. And, the future's bright for those guys.
Are you at a point now where, especially with those guys who are playing those major minutes, Nassim's going to redshirt for you, Lahat's probably another month and a half away from getting that cast off his foot. But when you're playing those guys, are you at the point where they're freshmen, but they're also talented?
Yeah.
Where you kind of have to let them play through some stuff because, your inclination as a coach is, especially with veteran players, somebody screws up a couple of times down the floor, get them over here on the bench. But these guys, because they are talented, but also freshmen, are you almost to that point where you're like, I got to let them play through a little bit? Yeah,
and the majority of times when errors are made with these guys, it's not because they're not trying.
Right.
You have different types of mistakes that get made. And, a guy like Riley, I think he's got 8 assists. He's got 1 turnover on the season. So that's not typical, number one, for a power forward, but number two, a freshman. So he still plays with a great deal of poise. And I'd say the majority of Riley's mistakes are coming on the defensive end. Timmy needs to improve some stuff offensively. He's pretty darn solid defensively. And Booth it's fun. It's fun watching these kids that they running around crazy. And I talked to him on the plane when we got back. And so much of what Booth needs to improve on, whether he's on offense or defense, is get down in a stance, because he's a little light in the shorts. As far as super, instinctive and has some of that DeLon, but he's getting knocked around a little bit. So if he doesn't play lower to the ground, he's going to have some problems. But it's all part of what we're talking about in the weight room and with Trevor to improve some, hip mobility. And then once we get on the court, let's start working on that.
It's really interesting. You talk about them having things happen to them that they've never had happen before. I think yesterday in the game against Northwestern, I saw that happen to all 3 guys. Riley was running the floor. He got a beautiful bounce pass. He went up to go dunk one.
Not so much.
Pinned against the backboard. He got knocked to the floor, and he was kind of looking around while it went the other way. Timmy, I think, has been used to, at his size, getting into the lane and being able to do some things. Well, he's good on those cuts, but he got in the lane a couple of times. He's getting bumped off the spot and having – and then, then Booth is used to that quickness and that length, and some things are happening to him. So it's you can see it happening out there, and then their eyes get really big for a minute, and then hopefully they put that in their recall, right?
Yeah, it's hard. You want to not make those mistakes, but at the same time, it's and we understand it. Our coaching staff understands it, and it's part of the process. It's almost like it's going to happen early in the season. Timmy had a rebound taken away from him yesterday. It was a 2-point game, and we get a rebound, and all of a sudden, a big kid takes it away from him and lays it up. I know that hasn't happened in a while, so that's one of those 4-point swings. And, it's part of the process. We have to certainly coach them, but so much of it's just going to be them putting that in their memory bank, going, okay, I got to come up with plan B. And then, the first half hour of practice tomorrow is going to be skill development. So we can work on some of these things that are their pet moves that are no longer really working. It's time to start coming up with some counters, but that's really what makes it enjoyable, being able to help some guys improve their game.
Do you remember that happening to you maybe on the pro level when you went from college where you were all conference player of the year? Do you remember that first moment in the NBA where One of those moves was patented for you at Montana, and you tried it, and somebody put you in your place?
Yeah. I think every time you jump up a level, I can remember it more specifically when I went from high school to college.
Gotcha.
I actually drove an old 54 Dodge truck that was my brother's. And I can remember because I was living in Missoula and I started working out with the Grizzly basketball team while I was still in high school, which was a great advantage. But the first day I played open gym was absolutely pummeled, and I actually can remember driving home in that pickup and I cried. I did. I cried. I thought, number one, these guys are such jerks, and and it was all part of that initiation phase where it was hard. I got knocked down. I got so many of my shots blocked. And our coaching staff actually told me that they remember that happening. I was just shooting my little jump hooks and they were getting sent back. And the next time they said they watched the open gym, all of a sudden I was pump faking. And so the quicker you can figure it out, the better. But I know I had my moments in the NBA where it's humiliating, and I went from being more of an inside player in college to having to adjust to shooting some threes.
Right.
And that was one of those enlightening moments playing for Coach Weiss at San Antonio. I caught the ball, I remember, and passed it, and he stopped the practice, and he never got animated as a coach. Never. Bobby Weiss never yelled at anybody or anything. I remember him blowing the whistle and top of his lungs just lighting me up and saying, "You got to shoot that ball. If you don't shoot that ball, you're hurting the team." And I remember just thinking, that's the first time I've been given the green light on the perimeter, and that was big for my confidence. And I actually used that the other day with Riley. I said, "You're killing us because you're pump faking yourself covered. We earned that open shot, and you're too good of a shooter." So yeah, I can remember it as a player, and you certainly can see it through the lenses of all these players, and it's to be expected.
Speaking of players, we'll come back and pass out our weekly awards and talk a little bit about some emphasizing of calls this year. There's something called a hook and hold has been talked about a lot in college basketball this year. Tonight's Larry Krystkowiak Coaches Show presented by Smith's, as always, and also brought to you by our friends at Nissan, proud supporter of college athletics. Go test drive the Rogue at a Nissan dealer near you. Nissan, proud supporter of the Utes. Back with more of the Coaches Show next. This is Utah basketball from Learfield. Donnie Tillman, one of the stars of the weekend for Utah basketball. As we welcome you back into the Coaches Show, coming to you live from Larry's office tonight. We'll be here all year long. It's presented by Smith's. You can listen in as you are right now on ESPN 700, our flagship radio home, or watch the video of us. Look at that beautiful mug of his.
Oh,
Did you put makeup on?
Yeah,
You're glowing tonight.
Oh, I'm sure
You're glowing tonight.
Yeah.
You can check it all out on the YouTube channel, courtesy of Utah Athletics. We're here at the Huntsman basketball facility doing it tonight. We got to give out our weekly awards, Team Player of the Week and a Subway Sub of the Week. The Team Player of the Week is brought to us by our friends at University of Utah Health. You can visit them online at uofuhealth.org. Played 3 games last week. Was there somebody that stood out to you in those 3 games down in Southern California?
Yeah, I mean, we had obviously we had some issues with consistency. We had, I thought Ced was great from an offensive and defensive point of view in the middle game, but struggled at both ends, in the other games. I thought overall, as far as the starter goes from a consistent point of view, I thought probably Donnie deserves that award. He didn't have, the 26 points maybe that Cedric did, but was consistent. We didn't have anybody really play well on Sunday. So it's mostly just that Thursday, Friday, back-to-back. And I thought Donnie's, his motor has improved. Defensively, he's improved and gave us some nice minutes in both of those games.
So our Team Player of the Week this week will be Donnie Tillman, brought to you again by our friends at University of Utah Health. That brings us to our Subway Sub of the Week. You played a lot of players. You played a lot of guys this year. Somebody who came off the bench for you or was a sub for you that you liked?
Yeah, Riley.
Yeah.
Riley's making some good progress. He's coming in. It was a stabilizing force and, making the freshman mistakes that we talked about. But, man, he's doing a nice job. Positive things are happening when we get him the ball in the post, and he got some of that draw and kick stuff going on Friday night that was really contagious with our basketball team. And he's up here every day watching film and wants to be a player. So I'm real pleased with his effort coming off the bench.
I will also say, too, you mentioned, I think he's got 8 assists now on the season in 6 games. He's getting 1 or 2 a game. He passes the ball very well. He's got good court vision. And there's little things that he does that you could tell he's a heady basketball player. I think it was yesterday. It may have been in the Grand Canyon game. He tipped the ball. He went up on a loose ball rebound and tipped it over, I think, to Jace. Jace went up. I think he may have missed the layup or been fouled, but it was one of those things where he could have tried to pull that rebound down, but 2 guys were coming at it, and he just had that wherewithal to tip it across to Jace. Just some little things that he's doing.
No, you're right. He's got a good feel, and he does some things that you can't coach. And he's going to, I think we looked, Coach Connor, I did some clips, Coach Connor did some clips, and there's, bad habits when the shot's taken of him going underneath the glass and getting ready to go up and sweep the thing when he needs to find some contact, create some contact for himself. Once he gets his shot fake perfected, I think he's real quick now with the shot fake, but he's proven to be a solid enough threat from 3. But his shot fake has to look like a 3 so that guys still keep
run
coming,
out at him,
and then he'll be able to make a play off the bounce. And then defensive stuff, it's just there's a lot of things to learn. I've always said that's the hardest thing for a freshman is to figure out how hard it is to guard. And that's where some mistakes are coming. But he gains confidence. Look, he was with us in the summer and looked like a fish out of water. And he'd be the first, kind of like my analogy when I got to college. It just wasn't very much fun. Man, this is a lot harder than I thought. Then they went back for their little summer break to California, and he came back, and he was a better player. And then each week it seems like he keeps getting better and better, and that's a really good sign for he and the other freshmen that are playing.
So Riley Batten will be our Subway Sub of the Week, brought to you by Subway. If you're feeling hungry but only want to spend a few bucks, their Footlong Faves collection lets you choose from 5 different Footlong subs starting at $4.99 from Subway. Wanted to ask you about something that's become a point of emphasis this year. I'm doing air quotes for those that aren't watching the video tonight. We've seen it a lot, not just in your games, but around college basketball this year. It's become unfortunately a term in the lexicon of basketball, the hook and hold.
Yeah.
Did you know that this was going to be as big a point of emphasis as it's become?
Well, it was the thing in the video they send you in the summer. I didn't realize it was going to be 3 times a game.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it seems to be the thing that's being sought out. And, you know, I just can't help but think I completely know why it was implemented. There was, you know, a pretty egregious hook and hold where somebody gets their shoulder dislocated or whatever happened last year that would have been pretty obvious to the naked eye, to, you know, or to the video that that's not a normal play. But for us to jump off the deep end now, and every time that two guys get locked up, I mean, I can show you 4 of my old basketball cards. You know,
were the pictures of you hooking and holding?
Yeah.
Somebody?
Well, I mean, and part of that's protecting yourself.
Yeah. And
it's two guys that get locked up with each other that are trying to keep from falling on the floor at a high speed. It's if we can find a little bit, it's as you mentioned off air with the targeting
in football.
You know, if we can just identify that there's certain times that it's normal, because what I'm fearful of, and I know is going to happen, there's not always an initiation by somebody, but boom, our arms get locked up, and now they go to the camera and they go, well, neither one of the guys really started it, but guess what? It's a common foul for both of them.
Yeah.
And we've got 5 fouls. So that's, you know, that's, you get 2 of those in a half, and all of a sudden you can't play. And I go back to my, you know, I'm sure everybody's tired of listening to me talk about how we need more than 5 fouls, but it's those types of plays that it's going to be a foul on each guy, and I just think we need the better players to be playing.
By the way, are you spreading that gospel at coaches' meetings and other places? Because I think I've heard in the offseason some other places, other coaches in your profession, college profession, bigger college coaches, advocating for 6 fouls.
Yeah, I you know, the guys kind of laugh at me at our twice-a-year coaches' meetings, and I always mention to the refs about it. And the crazy answer that I've heard back is, no, we tried that back in 1983, I think, in the Big East Conference, and it just didn't work. It turned it into a bloodbath. And I'm thinking to myself, every year in the Big East has been a bloodbath, and giving them more fouls back then when we didn't have the rules that we have today was not a good idea. But now we've got, you know, all of the protection of guys, the hook and hold and the cylinder rule and the hand check that didn't exist back then. And I've talked to numerous referees that love the idea.
Right.
The last thing they want to do is come into the Huntsman Center for, you know, one of our Pac-12 games and make a mistake on 1 foul and get a block charge foul called on a guy. That's 2 fouls 3 minutes into the game, and now they get booed out of the arena because maybe our best player doesn't get a chance to play the whole first half. That's not what this is about.
Right.
So if they had a little bit more, and I'll go back to math, like when is 5 divided by 2 at any point, or 5 divided by, if you are in quarters or halves, or to me, you get 2.5 fouls each half. That, or should we just give them 3 fouls in the first half so a coach can say, you know what, I can afford you getting 3 fouls in this half because you'll get 3 more the second half. But that obviously it's above my rank, but it seems like common sense to me.
But keep talking about it, because it sounds like maybe some groundswell is beginning for this.
And here's the thing. My biggest problem, I know we've had games, I can't tell you when they were, where we've benefited or maybe won a game because the other team's best player sits on the bench. But I know we've lost games because our best players had to sit on the bench.
Oh, you've told me this before. This isn't about Utah. This is about the game in general. You want the best guys out there at the end of the game deciding who's the best team.
Well, you
don't want that guy sitting over the bench.
Championship game 2 years ago, where 5 guys fouled out. And that's all it's all the announcers talked about was how here you're playing for the national championship in college basketball, and the mistakes, the refs weren't perfect in that game. There were some fouls that were called that shouldn't have been called. So who wants to watch a national championship game with some of the best players sitting on the bench? Who would want to watch any game? What other sport is there? You know, that just doesn't exist. You want to watch the best players play, and so yeah, man, let's get it implemented.
We'll keep talking about it. Coach's Show continues next. Tulsa comes in on Saturday. Frank Haith's team out of the American Athletic Conference. We'll get a little scouting report on the Tulsa Golden Hurricane next. This is Utah basketball from Learfield. progress. Booth Gotch making progress. We were just talking about those guys earlier. Welcome back into the Coaches Show. Tulsa comes in on Saturday to the Huntsman Center. Good opponent. If you're not familiar with Tulsa, it's one of those, you almost hate to even call it a mid-major program because they've been so good over the years. So many good coaches have come through there, too. Nolan Richardson, Bill Self was there, Frank Haith is there. You go down over the years, so many good coaches, and they've always produced NBA players, too. Guys you've either coached with, played with. If I'm not mistaken, I think one of your former teammates was a Tulsa guy. Wasn't Paul Pressey?
Yeah.
You played with Paul in Milwaukee, right?
One of my favorites.
Yeah, and he was a Tulsa Golden Hurricane.
Yeah.
So it's a really good program. That's a good game, and they'll be in on Saturday.
Yeah, and they played 4 home games to start the season and did what they were supposed to do, and then played Nevada Reno to a 10-point game. They were in that ball game, and then lost a close game to Southern Illinois, which is a tough team. But this is a good team. I'll be completely honest. We finished up the tournament yesterday, having played the early game was all about us in my mind. Our staff is going crazy with the Tulsa film.
You got Scotty working overtime?
Yeah, and I don't know the first thing about how they play or anything, but I want to, this is one of those deals where we have a few days, and I really want our guys to know that this is a lot more about us than it is Tulsa. But I know we've got our hands full. I know they're a good team. And this, when we scheduled this game, the concept was to make sure that we got one of those 100 RPI type teams, and we're going to have our hands full. Our football game, what a great opportunity on Friday night, and then this game's on Saturday. Hopefully we can get people home. I don't know. They want to come home and catch the game. We got to get the students rocking, but this one's on. I mean, you look at the rest of our schedule coming up. We've got our hands full in all of these games leading right up to league, and it's going to be a big one for us on Saturday.
Well, and that's a good part about the way this game is scheduled. You mentioned 3 games in 3 weeks. You can take the next couple of days, clean up some of the things you were talking about that you didn't like and need working on from the last week, and then spend a couple of days prepping for that game Thursday and Friday.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, we're gonna get after it Tuesday, Wednesday, knock down, drag out type of practice, and then probably something skill related on Thursday, and then hit it again on Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Friday, wrap it all up and get after it in a matinee. But that's exactly right, and the timing's not bad for the amount of work that we have to do. And I know our guys are excited about it too. The other good thing about some of these young kids, they got short memories. Yeah, they're just kind of, it's like, hey, when's the next one? Give us something to think about. Let's get some direction. And I'm challenging our seniors. We've got 3 seniors that need to be more consistent and need to step up and make some plays. And I'm not saying anything behind their back because they've all heard it from me. But it's a combination. We can talk all we want about these young kids, but we've got a senior backcourt in Parker and Cedric and Novak, and I know all their hearts are in the right spot. But at the end of the day, your players have to make some plays, and we're going to probably go as they go.
Let's take our final time out here on the Coaches Show. When we come back, we'll do some random stuff with Larry. And maybe even do our new feature called the 3-Man Weave. Even though it's 3 questions.
It's a 2-man weave with 3 questions.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I messed it up. And
2 on 3.
There we go. We'll do that coming up next. This is the Coaches Show from Learfield. certainly shot it well in the Grand Canyon game. We welcome you back into the Coaches Show tonight. About two and a half minutes left in the show. We're going to do our 3-question, 2-man weave. But before we do that, quick thought on the Pac-12 championship game on Friday night. You like the Utes' chances?
Oh, sure. I always like the Utes' chances. They lost to Washington State the first time. They beat Washington. Right?
No, they lost both.
Oh.
They lost 21-7.
I really like their chances now.
Okay.
Yeah. It's always a little bit sketchy to try to beat somebody twice, in my opinion. Maybe that's an old wives' tale, but I like where we are. And the bummer about it was, the amount of emotion and the one less day having Washington State play on Friday,
right.
And then for some reason our league has us playing an 8 p.m. game. You'd like to think that both teams would come in with an equal number of days to prep, but what can get them ready and rocking and rolling. It's going to be a heck of a night. Friday
night we'll be in Santa Clara. Then I'll be back Saturday for the basketball game. All right, 3-question, 2-man.
Not only them, they need some knuckles, but our ladies volleyball team needs some knuckles too.
Beth's team is in action on Friday as well against Denver down in Provo. All right, 2-man, 3-question weave. Take your pick. You can have Thanksgiving or Christmas. What do you want?
Oh, Christmas.
Christmas?
Yeah.
Okay.
When you have the 5 kids, there seems to be a little bit of extra shine.
Okay.
We're going to stick around Salt Lake and get the campfire or get the fireplaces going and chill. We usually try to seek warmer weather, but we're going to hang out.
All right, 30 seconds. You're playing 2-on-2 with the staff. Who are you picking as a teammate?
Oh, that's funny. I'll probably have to go with Slokers. I'll take Slokes.
Taking Slokes?
Yep.
The young dog. And finally, your favorite basketball movie of all time is?
Hoosiers.
You and me both.
That's mine.
Great minds thinking alike. We'll see you on Saturday. This is the Coaches Show. Back here next Monday. This is Utah basketball from Learfield.
All right.
Thanks, JP.